This week on Lessons I Learned in Law, I was delighted to be joined and honoured to be joined just at the nick of time by Steph Lopes, who is Chief Legal Officer at Volt, which is a fintech London scaling post-Series B fintech business that facilitates open banking. And it was great to catch up with Steph at this point in time. She's just about to head off on maternity leave, so we had a lot to talk about and what that's like as an executive stepping back from the business. She was employee number 40 at Volt and has obviously been ingrained within the executive for a long time. Now, she joined Volt from Bird, straight from private practice, where she'd worked with them as a client for a number of years from their sort of seed funding. And she joined just after their Series A. So it was a really exciting time and really cool to hear about that and the relationship that she had with one of their founders. We also hear about she had 4 secondments during her time at Bird. She was a seasoned secondee, and that helped shape, like, good and bad, what she thought about in-house, and helped shape her and give her an understanding as to what it was she was looking for when the right opportunity came knocking. So loads of stuff to unpick, everything about being courageous in your values, what it's like stepping into the executive of a business like that, and exciting personal journey that she's on ahead of her. So thanks for joining, Steph. I hope you enjoy. Today's episode of Lessons I Learned in Law is proudly brought to you by Wordsmith AI. Now, Wordsmith AI is redefining how in-house legal teams automate routine tasks and repetitive tasks like contract review and internal requests so that you and your legal team can work strategically and work on proactive projects. They're an Edinburgh-based startup. They're one of the UK's fastest growing startups, and at a really exciting time in their growth journey. They're showing how technology, AI and talent as a combination can really build the modern in-house legal team. So find out more by heading over to wordsmith.ai. Hi, Steph. Thank you for joining me today on Lessons I Learned in Law.
Hi, Scott. Nice to chat with you today.
Yeah, nice speaking. I'm in London this week, but we've not managed to coordinate an in-person meeting. Circumstances in your personal life making you a little bit less mobile.
Slightly mobile, a lot larger than I was 6 months ago, that's for sure.
Cool. Well, expecting soon. So keen to hear a bit more about that. But I've done my best to give you an introduction. But if we could start just by sharing a bit of an overview of your current role and responsibilities in that role, and then we'll get started talking through the lessons as well.
Great. So I'm Chief Legal Officer at Volt. Volt's a fintech scale-up. We're in the open banking sphere in the payments world, looking to sort of build a global interconnected world of instant payments. So there's a lot of instant payments systems worldwide. None of them really talk to each other, so it's our job to try and make that happen. My role has been interesting over the last 4 years. I think I've at various points been head of legal, head of compliance, head of people, and various other things at various points in times, depending on what the company's needed. Right now, I'm just the Chief Legal Officer. We now have a brilliant Chief People Officer and a brilliant head of compliance as well, who've luckily taken over those domains. So I'm focused on the legal side. And I sit on the exec team and the board, both of which are really interesting roles as well.
Brilliant. And when did you join Volt?
I joined at the end of 2021. I was at Bird for a decade before that in the tech transactions team, and just sort of after COVID decided I fancied to change.
Nice. And it was set out, was it 2019 the business was founded?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Right as we went into COVID.
So going in quite early in its growth then, and getting into that role. What stage of funding was it at that point in time when they hired?
I actually signed my contract the day they closed their Series A.
Okay.
Yeah. Volt managed to get a record-breaking Series A at that time in the fintech space. And I'd been sort of talking with Tom, the founder, sort of about a role. And once he said they got this record-breaking Series A, and was I sure I didn't really want to join, then I sort of changed my mind. I thought, well, maybe it's going somewhere. Maybe I should join. So I did.
Yeah. Grab the coattails,
Yeah.
ride the rocket.
Right.
Good, nice, good approach. So, did you know them? Had you worked with the business before?
Yeah, they were a client of mine at Bird and Bird. Actually, I'd been working with them pretty much since the beginning. I think I drafted their first client contract. So I've sort of been here since the start, really.
Brilliant. See, in that position at Bird and Bird, in that type of team, in those conversations, did you find, was there a lot of those opportunities in the time, like to go and join clients that you were working with, or
Yeah,
you feel you were
several.
positioned to do that?
I think I was known as a comment queen at Bird and Bird because I quite liked going on clients' comments and doing some of the in-house stints. I just really like being close to the business. The business aspect of law, to some extent, interests me more than sort of the pure black letter law. So I really enjoyed it. I started doing comments quite early. I think the last 3 months of my training contract actually were on secondment to BA Systems Applied Intelligence. And then I did Bank of England, and then I did Nestlé, and then I did ABB. So I actually spent, although I was Bird and Bird for a decade, I think I spent about 5 years actually within clients. And there were opportunities through the year, but it's when one's the right opportunity and the right time to take it, I think is interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How did you know? How did you know that was a Series A? Like those businesses are all fairly sort of blue chip organisations and pretty sophisticated or like large legal teams.
Exactly, and I think there's pros and cons to joining large sophisticated legal teams versus joining a startup and building your own. For me, I kind of like the challenge of building my own and picking the team I was going to work with and setting up the function. I found it really interesting rather than sort of going into sort of a large legacy organisation that you couldn't necessarily have much direction in. Especially at that stage in my career, I'm sort of very grateful to the Vault team and to Tom in particular for sort of offering me the opportunity to become GC as my first in-house role.
Nice. Cool. Well, thanks for that. Thanks for the intro. We'll jump in then. If you could share your first lesson, that'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think my first lesson that I have taken is to ensure that communication is clear. I think it's absolutely key. So often, and I don't think this is actually limited to in-house, so often even private practice lawyers are sort of so focused on their specialism in their area, and they have a deep understanding of sort of the legal nomenclature and things, but forget that the rest of the business or the client doesn't necessarily have that. And I think if you can make sure that your communication is clear, you're much more likely to get buy-in into what you're trying to say. If you can explain things from sort of a layman's standpoint and just sort of bring people along on more of a journey rather than say, well, this is my legal opinion, take it or leave it, or this is my legal opinion, we must do it. If you can bring people on that journey and get sort of more buy-in as to why that is, in your opinion, the right option to take or the right road to walk, then I think you're much more likely to do well and succeed and steer the company in the right direction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But when did you first when did you first start thinking about that, like deliberately and thinking like shaping your legal advice to communicate messaging? Was it in practice?
Yeah, it was in private practice. Bird and Bird, to be honest, have a brilliant development program, and I was lucky enough to sort of go on a couple of them. And I think anyway, a couple of Bird and Bird's values are sort of conciseness and clarity, or at least they were when I was working there. And I think it's always sort of been drummed into me that your communications with your clients need to be clear and they need to be understandable and they need to be commercial. Otherwise, you just get seen as sort of the lawyer locked in the white ivory tower and looking down and not really contributing too much, which I think is the last thing I wanted to do. I'm very much a business lawyer, and whilst balancing risk and making sure that we're on the right side of the law, I'm very much sort of a commercial lawyer in the sense of I like the business side and I like ensuring the business gets to do, or at least as much as it can in the legal arena, ensure that it can sort of do its best and achieve what it wants to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When did you when did you decide to be a lawyer? Like, how did it come around for you?
So I'm laughing because I was sort of mildly obsessed with Legally Blonde and Miss Congeniality when I was a teenager, and
Okay,
it got me into it, and sort of reading legal novels and things like that, and I really enjoyed it, and I guess it got me interested in subject matter, and I decided I wanted to do work experience in a law firm. I grew up in Guernsey in the Channel Islands, and I was lucky enough to do a few summer works at a really good law firm there. And I really enjoyed it. But again, I think it was sort of working in those sort of more commercial spaces and sort of going into business, I think that I really enjoyed, but not necessarily being the revenue leader or the sales leader, but sort of having that sort of holistic management oversight that I think you do get from law. And that was why I decided to do it. So yeah, I then applied to study law at university, and I've done law the whole way through. I was lucky enough to get my training contract from Bird.
Nice. And what on the communication front, like what projects since you've moved in-house do you feel have benefited the most from like your communication style, and how did you go about shaping that for those specific projects?
So I think it's anything cross-functional. I think if you've got sort of pure legal projects or sort of fundraising, things like that, that's sort of very much, I guess, corporate matters, working with those who are used to working with legal, then it's not unimportant, but to some extent it's less important. I think where you have huge cross-functional projects, so I'm trying to think of some examples, but sort of anything where you're having to work with maybe the people function or the sales team, I think it's really important that you're just not seen as somebody that's just sort of spewing out verbiage and not really achieving very much. I mean, right from the bat, when we got here, I had to work with our sales team to sort of redraft all of our sales contracts, sort of get them to a much better state, because the product had sort of moved on, yet that hadn't necessarily been communicated to the external counsel at the time. So when I got here, and you kind of then need to almost embed yourself in the sales team to actually understand, and the product team indeed, to understand what the products are and how they're being sold. And then sort of try and interpret that and get that then distilled into a contract that then the clients can understand as well. I think it's those sorts of projects where it really benefits. We've had a number of sort of huge cross-jurisdictional, cross-functional projects. I mean, we've obtained 3 licenses in the time that I've been here. And all of those projects, sort of, I was the linchpin, sort of making sure we were driving that forward, as you well should be in the legal function. But to get the inputs that you need in terms of the business plan from the sales team, or the product definitions from the product team, and then distill them into your application bundle and make sure that they are understandable then to the regulator. But you've also got that clear communication so that you fully understand and can distill it. I think that's really important.
Yeah, it's, I think it's such an important skill. How do you assess for it when you're interviewing? You've grown a team at Volt. How do you? Is it something you actively assess for?
Yeah, we looked at our assessment process pretty early to make sure that we were getting the right people into the team. I think for me, it's really important my team is seen as a business partner and not a business blocker, and it's always been the case. And I think when you're interviewing, it's sort of asking almost role play queries. How would you deal with this situation when it arises? Even sort of written communications, we've had just test drafting skills, but also to check sort of skills in terms of the reply that's coming back to the business and how that's coming across as well. I think tone's really important as well as what you're saying.
How much of that do you think's shifting with advancements in AI? And like, I think we see a lot of still sort of written assessments, and I just query how, like, what people are getting from that, from the output of that, if it isn't delivered in person in terms of the individual.
I was going to say, I've had it delivered in person. That's why, for exactly that reason. I must say one of my favourite tricks is running my emails through ChatGPT to adjust tone. Because I think sometimes you're so busy, or especially when I'm so busy, I'm quite short in my emails without sort of any intention to be so. I know it can come across a bit sort of that was a bit abrupt. What have I done to upset her? But it's not the case at all. It's just I was trying to get to the next thing. So sometimes if, important emails, I will just run them through ChatGPT and say, can you soften the tone a little? We have our own internal version of ChatGPT and the data doesn't go anywhere. So that's why. But yeah, I find it a really useful tool to manage tone, to be honest.
Yeah. And I suppose anyone that's coming to interview, you're probably going to want them to be fluent, like now going forward. You want them to be fluent in use of AI. So
Yeah.
counting that against somebody is probably the wrong approach anyway. So you expect they are going to use that, but it's to advance or improve their actual tone, or let them showcase their highlight.
Well, and I think it's pretty important to how you're using it and what you're using it for as well. I think you have to use it sensibly.
We did a training session yesterday with a company who came in, consultancy on AI, and we had done a lot of work with other recruitment agencies. And yeah, I thought I was pretty shit hot on ChatGPT use and prompting, but it was eye opening in terms of the gaps and how improved we could become in using it. But I think it's it's also helped. I think for a little while I've been a little bit don't know how you feel, but overwhelmed by it, by the where to go with it and what to use. Feel my nerves have been slightly settled on that from yesterday. But more looking at it as an opportunity rather than a threat. But
I've always loved it because I was in tech transactions at Bird and Bird. We've been looking at AI for kind of years, and I've been really excited to sort of see the development and the new use cases, and I've made sure that we've been using it for sort of at least the last sort of 2 years now, on the legal side to kind of improve our delivery and efficiency essentially.
Mm-hmm. What does the internal version or the internal tech that you have, is that specifically for legal, or is it cross function?
We have Ironclad, which has an AI built in, which we've sort of built playbooks for to enable sort of quicker reviews of NDAs and some of our standard terms. But no, we just have the standard ChatGPT, but with our own instance, so the data's not going back to train the model. We've got no sort of IP leakage there or data leakage.
Right.
But different horses for different courses, I suppose.
Yeah. What's it like implementing and rolling out something like Ironclad? Like, how do you? For me as well, like technology is hard. Is the implementation, the uptake? How did you shape that within the team?
Yes, I think it's really important to define with whoever you're buying the tool from exactly what you want to get out of it, and then make sure the implementation suits that. We at the time did not have resource to sort of implement Ironclad internally, so we used an external consultancy that helped us implement it. But I think what's really important is to be really clear going into that how you want to use the tool, because I think there's always a number of different ways that you can implement, and a number of different sort of connections that you can build, or you might place importance on one, or traditionally people might place importance on one integration where for you it's actually really important to have another one. So I think as long as you've sort of defined and really understood what you want to use that tool for and how you want to use it, if you can then communicate that to whoever's implementing it, whether it's internal or external, you end up with a much better, or at least a much smoother journey. That's the theory anyway.
Yeah. Cool. So we'll move on to lesson 2.
Okay, so I think my lesson 2 was be courageous and stick to your values. There's a lot of discussion around in-house ethics at the moment. The SRA's pushed out sort of new in-house ethics rules, which are really helpful actually, and I think long overdue. To me, I think you are in an interesting situation as in-house counsel, because you're often quite often having to say no to your boss, which is a very different situation than having to say no to your client when you're in private practice. And I think there are sort of a number of matters that can come across your desk that are going to challenge your own personal ethics and your own personal values. And I think it's really important to be clear to yourself and to your team, and I don't just mean the legal team, I mean your wider exec team, as to what those values are, and make sure the company's defined its values as well. And I kind of see the GC or the chief legal officer as the guardian of those ethics and values. And I think at the point that it's coming to the red line where you're about to sort of cross those boundaries and discard those ethical values, I do think that at that point you need to be ready to walk away, because I think it's if you as the most senior lawyer in the company don't maintain your ethics and maintain your integrity, then I think the company's at risk, and that's certainly not your job. You are there to protect the company and its shareholders.
Yeah. How do the sort of values and ethics? So that code, the code of ethics from the SRA. But like, as an individual, how do you? Is it something you regularly check in on, and is there an adjustment as you go through your career as to your self-policing, I guess, of your ethics? Does that change?
Yeah, I think it is about self-policing. I think if you can have sort of strong conviction in yourself and what your core values are, and I expect those wouldn't necessarily differ hugely from lawyer to lawyer, frankly. But I think if you can sort of maintain those and say, well, actually, no, there's my red line. Actually, I don't want to be involved with this anymore. Then I think that's where you start to sort of shift into that more of that protective role, because I think you should be checking in on it regularly. I wouldn't say you sort of need to study it on a weekly basis. I think it should be sort of ingrained and inbuilt within you. And I think, especially at this sort of senior level, when you get there, it should kind of be natural in a way.
Yeah, and I suppose it's probably useful to, like with the scandals and everything that's happened in recent times, like almost crisis management in your head as to what you would do. So you're exercising, or at least exercising the muscle to know where those red flags and where the boundaries are, and how you will react isn't sort of on the spot.
Yeah, exactly. And you can learn lessons from sort of public situations that had nothing to do with you. You can still take lessons and learn from them.
Yeah. And then on, like, linked back to lesson 1 on communication, when it comes to saying no or putting your foot down as a lawyer, where do you start in pitching that answer to your boss?
Yeah, so for me, I think it's really key to build strong relationships within the exec team and with the board, because I think at that point they understand you a bit more, and they understand that you are bought into not just your own values but the company's values, and they understand what you're there for. And I think once you've built those strong relationships, your communication comes across sort of that much stronger or better in a way. And I think it enables you to sort of get the buy-in and to sort of saying, well, I'm not just saying no for the sake of it. Normally I like to enable things, but this really is a red line. Let's not cross it. And I think it's just so much easier to have sort of those conversations with a very, like, in a way, like a calm demeanor, and just sort of make sure you say, okay, like, we've previously agreed that our values are X, or the law says Y. You want to do A, which is in breach of either of those things. We therefore shouldn't proceed with it. And I think it's again about taking sort of people on those journeys. Can you say, look, let's look at this logically. We've said before we wanted to do this. I understand that we want to enable this piece of business. This is not the right way to do it. Are there explorations that we can do? There may be another way to do it that doesn't cross those boundaries. Let's have a look at those and sort of take people again on those journeys to get to, again, the right outcome.
Just going to pause for a couple of seconds and say that today's episode is brought to you in partnership with Wordsmith AI. The Wordsmith AI is redefining how in-house legal teams work and operate, and how they automate repetitive tasks like contract review and other internal queries, and fielding those internal requests that are repetitive and can clog up how a legal team works. It allows in-house legal teams, frees up time to work on more strategic projects proactively. They're based in Edinburgh, so it's close to my heart, and they're one of the fastest growing legal technology providers globally. And they're really redefining how you can take technology and people and talent and transform the way that a business operates. So check them out at wordsmith.ai.
Yeah, it's good advice in walking it through early doors. When you joined Volt, were you on the exec, or has that been something you've stepped into?
Yeah, I joined and I started at, was I on the exec team immediately? No, I don't know what. I think yes and no. I mean, yes, nominally, whatever. I was in all the exec team meetings without necessarily having the C-suite title, shall we say?
Right. Yeah.
But
And what's that like? Like just stepping it, like with those, having moved from practice with the secondment experience, but that's the sort of first time in that level of like dealing with that level of operator. Like what are the first 30 days like, or first 90 days? How do you prepare?
yeah, I mean, it's a learning curve because my secondments were also sort of really big companies, so I wasn't necessarily working with their exec team. I was in some cases, but not in all. And I think it's sort of just, again, it's a steep jump up to sort of learn, okay, well, these are actually really senior, serious operators. Gosh, how do I hold my own in this room and still get my opinion heard? And I think it's something you have to take and sort of bring yourself very consciously and sort of say, they've employed you, they believe that you're good enough, they want to listen to your opinion. Just again, I think it's just more about how quickly can you build those strong relationships, and sort of, in a way, how quickly can you learn to sort of build your influence, and how can you hold your influence in a room with other really senior, really powerful people, especially when you're sort of dealing with founders at the startup stage. I think they're all, well, I personally think, I swear I know you're a founder, but you have to be slightly crazy to found your own business. So there's always sort of that little angle to it as well. So I think it's just really, I think understanding people is key. What works for Scott may not work for, whoever else, Harry,
Yeah. No, it's good. It's good advice. And like on that relationship building and understanding people, I think there's things you can take, steps you can take to improve that skill. But like, how do you, if you're deliberately going in there to say, like, I need to build relationships, is there anything, an approach that you take to that, or how do you start engaging with people at that level?
I like to sort of try and build a personal relationship beyond sort of just a business one, not necessarily knowing everything and all the dirty washing, but it's kind of more just sort of, if you get to know people on a very human level, you'll start to understand how they receive different types of communication or how they like to receive them. There are some people that would rather have a 2-word email, yes or no, and don't necessarily want to know what's behind yes or no. They're just happy that you've taken the decision and they don't have to read it. There are others that want sort of no because with 7 paragraphs underneath. And I think until you've sort of found your footing with those people and understood how they like to work, I tend to aim in the middle until I get to know sort of, actually, this person would rather just have no, and they don't care about my 7-page explanation, or this person is going to keep digging until they get the 7-page explanation, so you might as well deliver it up front. I mean, just asking people how they like to receive communications, how they like to work together. Do you prefer emails? Do you prefer me to pick up the phone? Would you rather wait to have serious meetings until we're in person in the office if you're in a hybrid environment? Just asking questions and sort of learning, really.
Yeah. Bit of curiosity, active curiosity.
Yeah.
Did you go in and in terms of like stripping down the functions that existed within the team and on the exec? How much of a deep dive did you have to do to understand their, like, what it was their team or what their function was designed to do?
Yeah, I mean, we were really small at the time I joined, so I didn't really have to. It was kind of very obvious on the front of it. I think I was employee number 40, and I think 30 of them were in the tech team. So sort of beyond that, there was, and I was mainly working obviously with the core functions, which was kind of that other 10. So I think you just sort of get to know those people, learn to work with them, and then sort of grow with them as the teams all expand and the company expands.
Nice. And what size is it now? How many employees are there?
I think we're around 150 now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what and the product is it? It's not a product that a consumer of banking app will see. It sit behind in terms of the open banking and the
it sits behind. So the consumer sort of main interface with it is when you go onto a website and you choose to pay by your bank. So it will say pay by bank or pay with Volt. And that's when they would get exposed essentially to the Vault checkout page and input their bank details there, and then it just gets said transaction powered by Vault, and then they're bounced back to the merchant's website. That's probably about the limit as to where the consumer exposure is now.
Okay, and all online. It's all online.
Yeah.
On the device. So we touched on it at the start. You're going off on maternity in a couple of weeks. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
We speak to people all the time who are either returning from maternity leave. We have a WhatsApp group which is specifically for parents, lawyers and professionals that are facing that or have it's very active in sharing challenges. How have you prepared for that? How do you stepping away from that high level position that you have within the team?
Good question. I've been trying to get the team in as good a shape as possible before I head off. I'm understanding so my backfill will be coming in 2 days a week rather than 5 days a week for various reasons. Some being that sort of I've been leading compliance to this, and we now have a head of compliance, so there's less work needed there. So I think I've just been trying to work with the team to ensure they're set up as well as possible to sort of work without me and to work with my backfill. So we have secured hopefully a really good backfill that will be coming in. They'll sit on the exec team on the days that are with us and sort of be that liaison between the legal team and the exec team, as I always have been, and obviously deal with any escalations from the team that are needed and any support that's needed. We've been doing a lot of work with Ironclad in the tool to make sure that all of our templates are sort of set up, that we've got sort of necessary commentary sort of within there that says if this pushback comes back, I would have said this, so that sort of the more junior team members sort of know how to respond for those standard pushbacks, building those sort of playbook type things. So there aren't sort of massive escalations to my backfill, obviously, because I only have 2 days a week. So all of those sorts of things, just trying to prepare as much as possible. I think the thing for me is I've been at Vault for sort of 4 years now, and it's been pretty intense. I have no idea what I'm going to do with my time. I'm telling you I'm going off in 2 weeks. The baby obviously won't be here for a few weeks after that. I have no idea how I'm going to fill those weeks, but I'm sure I'll find something to do.
Phone off. Yeah, it's a good time in still sort of summer months, I suppose. So I'm sure there'll be.
I guess so.
Yeah, as long as you're not overheating too much.
I mean, it's how you resist checking your emails. That'll be my thing.
Yeah. And first kid.
Yes.
You know. Yeah. And feeling excitement, but knackered, I imagine. In my life, we've had 3 kids. So
it is tiring. It's tiring. Sort of. I've been coming in sort of still 2 days a week up to now, pretty much, and it is tiring. That commute up to London, and especially when you get hot, humid days like today, it's like just sit inside in the air conditioning. Thank you. But, yeah.
Where's home? Where are you based?
I'm out in Coulston, just sort of on the edge of Surrey, so it's not too bad. I mean, the commute's only just over an hour, but it's just enough to take it out of you.
Yeah, nice. And have you seen? Is there other sort of females that have gone on maternity leave in the business, or like people?
Yeah,
you felt nailed.
We've had a couple. There's 40 of us in the office in London, and 3 of us are pregnant, and we're all due within a week. So wow. That's been quite fun having sort of friends along the journey.
Yeah. Oh well, you have a good network of working mums, and coordinate visits into the office.
Exactly. Yeah. We'll hire a babysitter.
Cool. Well, good. Yeah. Good luck with it.
Thanks.
It's exciting times. Life changing.
Yeah.
Number 1.
Yeah.
Cool.
I hear it takes an hour to leave the house, doesn't it, with a baby? So that'll be fun.
It does. I think try not to let my advice would be try not to let them take over everything. And it's I've got friends that have had one recently, and we at the same time we had our 3rd. So you're in a totally different headspace with number 3, and what phased you, and everything's new with baby number 1. So I definitely think it's the biggest step change in terms of like life. You got a dog, or do you have pets?
I've got 4 guinea pigs.
All right. Do you treat them like kids?
Yeah.
Are they like mollycoddles?
They are absolutely mollycoddled. They have their own Instagram account, a couple of brand sponsorships, and they are very well loved.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
All right. Nice. How did that happen? How did that come about?
And my phone was filling up with photos when I first got them, and I wanted somewhere to sort of set up and store the photos. So I set up an Instagram account and just sort of regathered more and more followers. And now I quite like doing little staged photo shoots with props and things because I find it quite enjoyable. It's a nice turn, like nice change from work, basically.
Oh wow, it's going to take on a whole new ball game when the baby's in some of those photos.
Get the baby in the photo shoot.
New followers, got a crossover, some new brand sponsorship.
Pampers for guinea pigs.
Yeah, yeah. We had a dog before we had our first one. I found it was like just the level of responsibility it was good prep, but yeah, so it sounds like you've got similar. Nice.
Yep.
Cool. We'll move on to lesson 3.
Okay, yeah. So I think lesson 3, I said, well, I think it's you're more than just a lawyer. I think you're also a business leader when you're in-house in a senior legal position. I think you need to be aware of that. The business needs more than just your legal brain. I think lawyers are very good normally at critical thinking, and hopefully you've built up some business acumen. And I think it's really important to use those along with your legal brain to be delivering cohesive and holistic and useful advice to the business. I think if you sort of just sit there with kind of your legal brain and this is a black letter law without thinking about the wider business and how what approaches you're taking with the legal can affect the business and the products and the clients, then you're not living up to as good as you could be.
Mm-hmm. And how do you, with your team, and the other, I guess, like 2 questions, but with your team, how do you encourage them to be like more than legal, but still balance, I guess, the legal compliance aspect?
Yeah, so I think it is something that's learned. I think it's not something that necessarily comes naturally to junior lawyers. Well, it's hard to generalize, but in the most case, I think. And I think it's a case of sort of listening in or sitting in with them with advice they're giving in or reviewing documents that they've been through in the first instance and sort of say, well, do you think you could have maybe phrased this comment in a different way, or could you have suggested something else rather than just saying no? And thinking through those things with them and just kind of how, instead of, I've always sort of drummed into them, we don't want to be a no function. So always try and enable. If you can say no, but it's kind of no, but I mean, there are times when it's no, and no, it's a definite single word sentence. But there are other times when it's kind of no, but have you thought about X, Y, Z? Or no, could we think about doing it this way? This product flow doesn't work, but what about if we did it this way? Would that work with our banking partners and the regulatory landscape? I think it's always just trying to be somebody that just tries to enable, to work as a partner with the rest of the business.
Yeah. And did you learn like from those, like the other hats you wore in the early days, like you said, compliance and like people or HR? I can't remember which one you said, but how helpful was that in looking at things through a different lens?
Yeah, it is helpful. I think it's helpful to see how the other functions need to use the legal team or want to interact with the legal team, because I think you can kind of understand a bit more, well, actually, you're seeing it with another hat on, and take your legal hat off and put your people hat on. Well, actually, what came back there wasn't particularly helpful, so we don't want to do that again. And so you can go back and say, well, actually, next time that comes up, could we think about doing it this way rather than that? Because it actually gave the people team a lot of extra work and wasn't particularly helpful, but I think we could have short-circuited it. And so I think it does help. I think it's something that I've just learned in various roles. Because of all my secondments, I've just seen, and working with a lot of clients in depth, you see how different legal teams work and the benefits or otherwise that they bring to the business, and you see what works and what doesn't.
Yeah. And with those secondments, like how much, like did you always feel like you were going to move in house, like with those secondments, or did you feel it was you were always going to go down that track?
No, not really. I mean, I enjoyed private practice as well. I think I didn't come back from secondments thinking, oh gosh, I want to go immediately in-house, it's way better. No, not at all. I think private practice has its merits as well. And I think, with that, you get to work on lots of varied things, lots of different clients, different industries. So maybe it's slightly more entertaining. I guess for me, because I've been lucky enough to be sort of on the management team for quite a while here, I found that I just really enjoy that management side of it, almost as much as the law.
Yeah. I guess massive benefit to having had that insight on the secondments, even that you're taking into shaping the legal team, and you are like what it looks like or what you don't want to.
Yeah, I mean, since I've been in house, I think I've seen, again, pros and cons of sort of various modes of practice of private practice lawyers. And I'm now a firm believer that every private practice lawyer should be made to do at least a 6 months secondment in house, so they understand what practical advice looks like.
Yeah. Do you think with like going in at Series A, I think even since 2021, there's probably been, I mean, like the tech sector as a whole has gone through a few ups and downs in that time. I think candidate appetite to go and join an earlier stage business has probably waned slightly, and maybe more of a draw towards the security stability. But I think it's coming back. But do you what do you think people should be looking for? Like, what did you look for when you said you sort of knew this was a great opportunity at the Series A, but what if you were doing it again? Like, what sort of due diligence would you do?
What questions would you ask? I guess it was easier for me because I'd been working closely with Volt, so it was one of my key clients.
Yeah.
So I understood the products, I understood the industry, I understood and knew kind of the exec team. I guess I knew what I'd be walking into. And then I sort of had the benefit of that sort of a very good market valuation. But I think for me, it's try when you're going or you're meeting them, try and understand how those teams work together and how you would fit in. Like, what is the team dynamic at that level? Or if you're at a more junior level, what's the team dynamic within the legal team? How do you think you would enjoy that dynamic, and how do you think you would enjoy sort of the overall culture of the firm? I think it's really, or the company. It's really important, and I think there's different people suit entirely different things. We've seen it here. Some people absolutely love it, some people hate it, and I think if the company has a really clear culture, that should be coming through in those initial interviews and all through the interview process. So you should be able to understand and assess whether it's something you would like to join, I think.
Yeah. And just that, like, ask questions. I think, like you said in one of the earlier
ask
lessons,
as many questions and meet as many people as you can. I think sometimes people get annoyed with lengthy recruitment processes, but I quite like them. I'd rather meet 10 people than 2, because you get a much better sense of what the company's like and what the people are like.
Yeah, and it's got to be a two-way. It's a two-way street. So the candidates asking those questions, I think, is super impressive. If you're interested and engaged in what you're doing, which you spend enough time at work, so you should be in some way, one way or another.
I hope you like it.
Be able to feign it. or be able to feign it very well. All right. Well, thanks for sharing that, Steph. So we're going to finish. I normally ask for a podcast recommendation and a book, but I'm going to mix it up. You guys were nominated for legal awards recently with the lawyer. I think was it Small Team of the Year and GC of the Year?
Yes, we won Small In-House Team of the Year, which was amazing. Nominated for GC of the Year, which was really cool as well.
Awesome. So if you had your chance to pick a walk-on song for your victory lap, what would you choose?
So anyone that knows me listening to this will laugh their head off. I really like what my husband likes to term crappy punk rock music.
All right.
So I would go with, I think it's a close tie. It's 2 songs, but one wins. I would go Mute World, Sweetness, because it's an absolute banger. and anyone that doesn't enjoy it and get really amped up for my appearance on stage to collect my imaginary award would be very sorry about it. So yeah, it's a just obscure song. It was either that or the Ramones' Blitzkrieg Bop, which is also a great amping up song.
Yeah. Are those your karaoke go-tos?
Oh no.
No. Oh well.
Far
Yeah, that would
more
get
of
the
a
crowd.
pop
It would
queen.
get the crowd in the mood. Those two definitely
Yeah.
amp them up. Awesome. All right, I think that's going to be a regular question. If you're GC of the year, if you're GC of the year, what's your walk on? That'll do. Awesome.
Like it.
Well, thank you. Thanks for taking the time. A few technical hiccups at the end. Thanks for bearing with me, and yeah, wish you all the best with the upcoming arrival and the lead up to that as well.
Thank you very much. It's lovely speaking with you.
Yeah, thank you.
I'd like to say a big thank you to our sponsor, Wordsmith AI, for sponsoring today's episode. As a legal tech company, Wordsmith AI share our belief that great legal teams can take amazing tools and transform the way that in-house legal teams work and operate. So to find out more about Wordsmith, head over to wordsmith.ai. So that wraps up another episode of Lessons I Learned in Law, powered by Harriet Brown In-House Legal Recruitment. Now, I share these stories each week to help lawyers of all levels, and both in private practice or working in-house. And it doesn't matter if you're early in your career or you're already leading a team. Learning from your peers or from those who have walked in your shoes before, then this is the show for you. If you find it useful, I would love it if you could share it with your colleagues or share it with your network, or drop us a message just to let us know that you're listening and that you're out there. Feedback really helps us grow the show and take it in the direction that gives the most value to you, our listeners. So until next time, I've been Scott Brown. Thank you.